Every day, it seems, the newspapers and network newscasts are filled with stories from Central America. Most deal with Nicaragua, right now the hottest of the hot spots. When they hear or read these stories, an awful lot of people in this country have a tendency to put all of the countries of Central America into the same bag. You know the image. Banana Republic run by this or that dictator. They have a coup every other week. Tonight, News 8's Doug McAllister starts a special series of reports on Costa Rica, a country quite unlike its Central American neighbors, a country which does not fit that image.
I feel it is one of the wonderful countries I ever see in my life. I mean, it is my country, but I've been in different ones. This is one of the best I ever see, and my the second best is United States.
Costa Rica just can't wait to tell its story, if people would just listen. And the biggest obstacle to trying to get the story out is the notion that Costa Rica is just another Central American nation with never-ending political trouble on its hands. It's easy to think that way because there is or has been trouble all around Costa Rica. But this country has been a solid social democracy since 1948. That's the last time there was a coup. This is a neutral nation of 2,300,000 people with a Congress, a constitution, with a one-time only 4-year presidential term, and without a standing army for 36 years.
This is a free country, and you can do everything. You want to work, okay. You don't want to work, you don't die.
Do you think communism will ever come to Costa Rica?
I don't think so.
Costa Rica has more than 70 different climate zones, and some spots definitely qualify as tropical paradises. Tourism, mostly from North America and Europe, is a very big economic item. There's certainly lots to see and do.
Just looking around, going some tours, and buy a few souvenirs, and go back to South Carolina, I guess.
Entertaining foreigners is Costa Rica's third largest industry. For the past few years, the Costa Rican government has courted the international media, showing off its showplaces like a new parent shows off a baby child. News 8 was last here with a camera 2 years ago this coming July. Costa Rica is a beautiful place to visit, and the people really do seem to like Americans. But things here have changed dramatically in just 2 years. Inflation is up, tourism is down, and it seems to have a lot to do with Costa Rica's neighbor to the north, Nicaragua.
Yes, there's been so much publicity about Nicaragua, about the Contras and the Sandinistas and all of that, that we have found it very difficult to tell them that this is different. This is not the same as Nicaragua. That there is no revolution here, and that this has had a stable democracy for over 40 years.
While neighboring affairs hurt tourism and hence the economy, there's also inflation to blame and an over-the-hill economic base which needs diversification.
Because of their volcanic situation, they have the best soil of anywhere in Central America, and almost any crop can be grown here if they have the technical expertise.
But for years, Costa Rica has specialized mostly in coffee and banana exporting, and the once booming banana business continues to lose ground to competitor countries. It must be remembered that in a part of the world where many other governments have not, Costa Rica's democracy has survived. Costa Rica's chief problems have to do with Central American politics, its own economy, and a severe challenge to the economy from outside Costa Rican borders, refugees. Tomorrow, a look at the Costa Rican political picture and the American military presence inside a country that's been called the Switzerland of Central America. In spite of its long history of neutrality, Costa Rica has become awfully important to outside interests in the ideological struggle going on all across Central America. It's not something the Costa Ricans especially want, but it seems to be part of Costa Rica's coming of age. More tomorrow. I'm Doug McAllister.
Costa Rica, Central America's longest surviving democracy, has not had a standing army for nearly 40 years. But now, many Costa Ricans fear that may change because of the arrival of American military trainers in Costa Rica. Tonight, News 8's Doug McAllister continues his special series on Costa Rica with a look at that country's civil guard.
Marty, the Costa Rican Civil Guard, the Guardia Civil, has 5,000 members and acts as Costa Rica's national police force. Now, 1,500 of them are being trained by 16 Green Berets in military tactics and procedures. Some Costa Ricans want the Yankees to go home. Most do not, but wonder if the training will lead to Costa Rica having an army again. The U.S. Embassy in Costa Rica has not provided information on this U.S. Air Force plane which landed at the San Jose airport 2 weeks ago. The cargo apparently is a load of 45 automatic handguns. Who gets the guns? The Costa Rica Civil Guard? Contras fighting Nicaragua's Sandinistas? We just don't know.
Right now is the time for the Americans to wake up and see what is happening in Central America. That we need them to help us, because later on they're gonna fight. They have to fight for their own freedom.
Not all Costa Ricans agree with Hector Vargas. In fact, most I talked with don't fear an invasion from Nicaragua or serious trouble from that country anytime soon.
You see Salvador, United States can send many troops there, and that's not the problem, The problem is a social problem. I think we need people with economic experience from the United States to come here and see our problems.
Still, a small detachment of U.S. military advisors since mid-May has been training the Costa Rica Civil Guard at a site very near the Nicaraguan border in jungle fighting and anti-terrorist tactics. U.S. political and military plans for Costa Rica are pretty easy to understand. Honduras, to Nicaragua's north, has already been militarily fortified through joint U.S.-Honduran military operations called Big Pine. U.S. troops and equipment are already inside that country. Dozens of airstrips have been built. Enhancement of Costa Rica puts the north-south squeeze on Nicaragua. While some student groups have protested the American military presence, that presence isn't an issue among Costa Ricans so much as whether the training will lead to reinstatement of the Costa Rican military, disbanded 36 years ago.
No tenemos ejército ni lo queremos tener. Lo que debemos tener es una fuerza de policía.
Costa Rica's ruling party reminded reporters at a news conference that the country's constitution prohibits an army. The Costa Rican vice president said American-trained civil guardsmen will be used in specific ways.
Lo que debemos tener es una fuerza de policía.
He says what we want is a police force trained and capable of guaranteeing the Costa Rican people certain security against terrorism, violence, and drug problems. To let us up to this point, because they don't know what will happen if we get closer to the Nicaraguan border. The Nicaraguan soldiers might be upset with the camera and they'll start firing at us. So we have to...
So from here... forward about 100, 200 yards is no man's land.
Right.
Along the Nicaraguan border, tension lately is building. A week and a half ago, 2 Costa Rican guardsmen were killed and 9 wounded during what the U.S. Embassy called an unprovoked attack by Nicaragua. Tension is part of life for those who live and work near the border, who day to day must deal with an economy that's been especially tough on farmers and ranchers, plus outside trouble.
Luego la situación económica está pésimamente mala.
He says the economic situation for him is terrible because a lot of people don't want to work in this region for fear of violence or Sandinistas. So he's in sad shape because of what's happening in Nicaragua.
Neutral nation or not, Costa Rica happens to be in a volatile part of the world at a volatile time in history. And while most Costa Ricans seem to be more concerned with their economy than troubles from the north, they are well aware that the two issues are connected. After runaway inflation a few years ago, Costa Rica is attempting the difficult task of broadening its economic base. To do that, the country will need to bring in outside investments. But investors fear the Central American political climate, even though Costa Rica has lots to offer. We'll have more on that tomorrow.
From what you saw, does it look like a very long road from a National Guardsman to a jungle fighter?
It really does. There's a whole great deal of difference and training involved.
Got a lot to learn. Thank you.
Costa Rica, Central America's democratic success story, is now seriously struggling with an economy which must change to survive. Now, to do that involves getting away from an economic base which for decades has been the backbone of the country. As his series on Costa Rica continues, Doug McAllister tonight examines the changes being planned and who may get hurt by the transition. Doug.
Allison, the big three income producers in Costa Rica for years have been coffee, bananas, and tourism in that order. Because of the times, tourism is off, and because of changing times, bananas are out. Costa Rica is looking for different income producers while accepting more and more foreign aid. Its tourism department calls Costa Rica the sharing place, and the country certainly has a lot to offer. Tropical retreats, exquisite resorts. Costa Rica truly is a place to be seen and experienced. Tourism is so important to the Costa Rican economy, but tourism, the number 3 industry, is seriously off.
They don't want to take a risk to go to a place that they think that something is going there, and in Costa Rica they will be safe here, they will be enjoyed, they will stay here in Costa Rica, and they will love Costa Rica.
While lately many tourists may think Costa Rica is an unsafe place to visit, many North Americans live here all or part of the time. 30,000 of them, more than half from the United States. There are problems along the Costa Rica-Nicaragua border, as there are along Nicaragua's northern border with Honduras. But the problems have to do with the Nicaraguan Sandinistas' continuing battle with rebel Contra forces. If Nicaragua is considering expanding its borders, this doesn't appear to be the time. I don't presume to speak for the entire population of Costa Rica. I only know what people tell me. And what they tell me is that it is the economy here and not the situation in Nicaragua that is the #1 concern. Government figures don't say so, but the people say that inflation lately has been running as high as 30% a month.
The inflation is going up, you know. The Costa Rican money is going down.
The government admits to 100% inflation a few years ago, but now says it's down to a 15% annual rate. Not bad, they say, for a developing nation. To develop further, economists here say Costa Rica must diversify. For decades, this nation has relied on its coffee as its major export and industry. Bananas were the backup until recently, when United Fruit pulled out.
So we're talking about agro-industry in the many forms that it has in our country. One area in which we have been very successful lately is plants and flowers. Then at the industrial level, we're beginning to grow in our textile industry, electronics industry, and other wood-related products, and the metal mechanical industry.
The Japanese, Taiwanese, and Koreans have shown interest in Costa Rican beef, dairy, and agribusiness potential, and Costa Rican President Luis Monge has personally courted the Orient's potential investors, while his economic minister has worked Germany and Western Europe. Herbert Halpern is a retired New York area millionaire and a volunteer economic advisor to Costa Rica.
Just about a decade ago, this country was getting something in the order of $12 million a year in the United States aid, and today it's about $1 million a day, in the vicinity of something over $300 million for the year.
So if a Costa Rican were to say, don't send troops or advisors, send economic aid, from what you know of the economic aid is already here.
And it's functioning and promoting the country and promoting a peaceful industrial country, which I believe is the best deterrent to communism.
If Costa Rica is successful with big money agribusiness ventures, small farmers and ranchers could be pushed further into the corner they're already in. National inflation has hit them as hard as anyone, and for so many years they've been the support for, if not the backbone of, the Costa Rican economy.
Well, I think if we have problems, we have to solve the problems by ourselves. I think this is better. At the time when you have to pay interest, then
economy is getting expensive every day.
These people, refugees, could be Costa Rica's most serious and immediate problem. 100 a day now wander into this country seeking relief that just isn't here. As well as being a human concern, the refugee problem is an economic one. With its inflation the way it is, Costa Rica can't afford to flood the job market with refugees. It's a country with only 2.1 million people. The refugee population could reach 80,000 or more by the end of this year.
Just how bad is the situation?
It has become really critical in the last 2 to 3 months. That's when the Reagan administration imposed the economic embargo on Nicaragua. Since that time, Nicaraguan refugees, who are the refugees into Costa Rica for the most part, have been entering the country at a rate of 100 per day.
That's amazing. We look forward to part 4, Doug. Thank you. Tonight, we continue our special series of reports on the Central American country of Costa Rica. And so far, we've covered the country's political standing and its efforts to change its economy. Tonight, a look at another serious concern related to both politics and economics. News 8's Doug McAllister joins us now with part 4 of his special series.
Allison, some call it Costa Rica's most serious problem. It has to do with people, thousands of them. They're not Costa Ricans, but they've been crossing into that country for several years and in much greater numbers lately. It's an exodus from the south to the south from troubled countries north of Costa Rica. You'll find them anytime and anywhere there is war, poverty, and unrest. In Costa Rica, there's too much border to patrol, acres of unwatched land to hide their entry. And so they come, night and day, the young and old. Costa Rica is not at war with Nicaragua or El Salvador, but strife and turmoil in those countries each day brings new concerns for Costa Rica. They are called refugees, and in the past 3 years, more than 32,000 people from El Salvador and Nicaragua have come south after a more peaceful existence. This is one of a half-dozen camps for Nicaraguan and Salvadoran refugees in Costa Rica. This camp is Red Cross, set up to handle just a few dozen refugees during their first 72 hours in country. Instead, 650 men, women, and children are sequestered here, and the number grows, as does the length of stay. When did he get here?
¿Cuándo llegó aquí?
Vine el 17 de mayo.
17th of May. He fled to avoid being taken to the military.
Like Alamein, his wife and young child, the refugees at this camp are Nicaraguan. 25 of the 32,000 refugees in Costa Rica are Nicaraguan, and so are most of the 100 or so people who cross into Costa Rica each day.
In Nicaragua don't have no freedom, no kind of freedom. You can't say nothing about the 9 men that there.
Is there freedom in this camp?
Well, we have a certain limit of freedom because we don't have arms behind our back.
So the refugees say that life in camp is better than the war, food shortages, and runaway inflation in Nicaragua. Life here, such as it is miserable.
We need clothes. You could look at some of them that don't have no clothes. Shoes. They don't have no shoes. They need medical system here. We need doctors here because plenty of us sick. The water that we drink in here don't good. The food don't good.
Diarrea en los chavalitos, chiquitos. Calentura en varios jóvenes.
He says there's a lot of colds, a lot of sore throats, and a lot of diarrhea with the babies.
While the Costa Rican Red Cross, or Cruz Roja, does what it can, away from here, the seriousness of the situation isn't fully recognized. This was to be just a temporary camp, but the larger, more permanent ones are full to overflowing. Most of the refugees are being held in the camps because Costa Rican inflation puts jobs at a premium, and the government won't flood the job market with these newcomers.
Well, the government don't tell us nothing, because when we come here, they don't have a meeting to tell us what it is they're going to do with us.
Vice President Araúz says the refugee problem has us extremely worried, and it should. Costa Rica has a little more than 2 million people, but could have a refugee population approaching 100,000 by the end of this year. Appeals for help have been sent to other nations, and there's talk of building more camps.
We have to live in amongst one another. We sleep on one another. We walk up on one another. We need something good, better than this. As a working man, all these boys is working boys. But we don't have any work here. The only thing that they have here to work is cutting cane. We don't know nothing about cutting cane.
Does he favor any particular political way of life?
He says that he's just worried about working and making money.
What did he say about a democracy?
He says that he likes a democracy.
Eventually, and certainly the sooner the better, Costa Rica will have to figure out a way to get these people out of the camps and into some kind of employment. They've assimilated refugees in the past, Salvadorans, Cubans, and Nicaraguans, but never before have they faced these kind of numbers. Refugees, the economy, the politics of Central America are all serious challenges for the Costa Rican people. But they've successfully met challenges before, and there appears to be no reason to believe that they can't meet the challenges of the present. Tomorrow, more from a nation proud of its past and confident of its future.
And confident, as you said earlier, that someday they will be able to work these people into their economy.
With most of them being Nicaraguans and so many of them having fled that country to avoid the military, there's no place for these people to go. They'll have to find some way to work them into the scheme of things.
Okay, Doug, we look forward to part 5 tomorrow. Tonight, we conclude our special series of reports on Costa Rica. Of the 5 Central American nations, its system of government, a social democracy, has been the most stable. Costa Ricans are proud of their country and confident that they can overcome present problems. News 8's Doug McAllister tonight reports that Costa Ricans appear ready to meet their challenges.
Allison, it's not possible to give a really complete picture of an entire nation in a 5-part series. But we can highlight major aspects, and that's what we've tried to do. Costa Rica is a successful nation with proud people undergoing serious change. Costa Ricans appear ready to meet their challenges. In a sea of regional trouble, Costa Rica for more than a third of a decade has demonstrated that a free and neutral country with politics neither to the left or right can survive in Central America. Costa Rica has its challenges, political and economic, but its people appear confident in their ability to persevere.
Here is better than any other area of Central America. People live much better over here.
The Costa Rican is very, I don't know how to say, but is very proud of their country and their people.
Meeting and solving Costa Rica's problems won't be easy. It seldom is. To do that, the country apparently will have to change like it never has before. Economically, that means a dramatic shift of dependency from traditional coffee farming and sleepy cattle ranching to agribusiness and light industry.
So we're sort of responding to the world economic scene, and we are also responding to certain changes that our economy needs in order to continue growing at the speed and at the level of development that we had in previous years.
Costa Ricans already have a lot going for themselves. Their infant mortality rate is the lowest and literacy rate the highest in Central America. There is poverty, but most of the country is middle class. There is socialized medicine, unemployment compensation, a jobless rate of just 7.8%. Inflation may actually be under control, and it's nothing compared to Costa Rica's neighbors.
My parents are still in Nicaragua, and my sisters. There is little food, and everything is more and more expensive now. They used to call me here on the phone, and it would cost 200 Cordobas, and now it costs 3,000, the 3 minutes. Well, it's going...
Costa Rica also must successfully walk a political tightrope to keep its neutrality and remain without an army. The national debt is $4 billion, but 80% is owed to the United States. The U.S. appears to be increasing its Costa Rican commitment with training and arms for the Civil Guard and by tripling its embassy staff in recent months. Relations with northern neighbor Nicaragua lately are sticky after a border clash left 2 Costa Rican civil guardsmen dead. The situation is ticklish in so many respects. Take electricity, for example. Costa Rica is a big electricity producer. It sells its surplus to Nicaragua to the north and Honduras north of that. Now, Nicaragua is $2 million in the hole to Costa Rica over electricity. Costa Rica would like to cut Nicaragua off, but to do so would cut off the electrical supply to Honduras. And there are the refugees, some held in camps for years, most so far with nowhere to go, even though they thought they had reached freedom. What do you want from a political system?
From a political system, I don't want nothing.
Freedom?
I want freedom, that is the most. And freedom, I think God is what makes freedom. And if we don't believe in God, we can't get freedom.
But among the Costa Rican people, a proud people with faith in a political system stable for nearly 40 years, there's the attitude that their nation will not only survive, but prosper. Costa Rica, the rich coast, discovered by Columbus, is a place they believe where dreams can come true. They did for this man, born in Costa Rica, a former U.S. Marine, now a successful businessman at home. He likes to compare Costa Rica with the United States.
After being in different, I would say, 30 different countries, it's the only two countries in the world that they have the same democracy and same freedom.
Do you enjoy your freedom?
Sure. Do you?
I was very impressed with Costa Rica and especially its people. They're proud of their country, they disagree over issues, but respect their freedom to do so. The crime rate is so low, you stand a better chance in the city at night of twisting an ankle than getting mugged. More than anything, the people want Costa Rica accepted as Costa Rica, and not just another Central American country.
Doug, how did you feel as an American in Costa Rica? Is it safe for traveling, tourists?
I felt very safe all of the time. I was especially impressed at nights. Not at any time did we, the crew of three, feel threatened. People very friendly, the Guardia Civil, the Civil Guard, friendly. They're not a military. It's a great country.
Fascinating series, Doug. Thanks for bringing it back.